Do you know what's on your food right now? It's probably glyphosate. Or maybe you know it better as Roundup, the weed killer. It's been linked to gut damage, metabolic disruption, and a growing body of research on long-term negative health outcomes. And President Donald Trump just signed an executive order shielding the companies that make it from liability. Sound familiar? No, it might, because in 1986, Ronald Reagan signed a law that did the exact same thing, just for a different industry. Different product, same playbook, and we're still living with the consequences of that one. Here's the question nobody wants to answer. What happens when the people responsible for protecting your health have no legal skin in the game? Well, hey folks, welcome to today's episode. I'm your host, Brian Nichols, coming to you from our Cardio Miracle Studios here in Eastern Indiana. And today we're talking about something that touches every single one of you, regardless of where you land politically, your health, and your right to make decisions about it. We're going to get into the glyphosate executive order, what it actually means, and why the pattern it follows should concern anyone paying attention. But more importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do, because this isn't a doom and gloom episode. There's a parallel world being built right now by people who got fed up of waiting for permission. And my guest today is one of the people building it.
Well, let's see. Who is Kathy Mehan? Because she is not the same person today that she was before. I am a medical freedom advocate. And when it comes to things like informed consent, I want to make sure that parents, children, families know risks, benefits, and alternatives of medical procedures. And it really started with my late husband, Jim Mehan, MD, who sadly passed away a year and a half ago from chemotherapy. And that's a whole nother segment of a show when it comes to informed consent and risk, benefits, and alternatives. And, Jim and I made a great team. He was the fierce voice and the medical side. And then I was, the marketing and PR stuff for Mehan MD. And we met in college over 35 years ago, and just we were this dynamic team. But when Jim passed, I was like, what do I do? I can't close the clinic. I mean, we have a nationwide adult clinic for adults. We do telemedicine. Our office is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we were in the middle of preparing to launch Mindset Kids, which is our telemedicine pediatric clinic. So I knew, I prayed, I knew we couldn't close the clinic. So now, I have a podcast. Who ever thought that was going to happen with the Mehan mission? I'm on podcasts, but the whole thing is we cannot stop fighting.
By the way, today's episode is brought to you by Cardio Miracle, the best heart health supplement on the market. But don't worry, we'll talk about that later in today's episode. So let me tell you something personal first, because it's relevant. I grew up in a family that worked the land. My dad, he's a former farmer. He ran a custom hire business across upstate New York, planting crops, working with agricultural chemicals, including glyphosate, and started losing weight. Not a few pounds. We're talking nearly 100 pounds, gone, for no reason. And he looked like he was skin and bones by the time we figured out what was actually happening. Celiac disease. Now, I'm not here to draw a definitive line between my dad's glyphosate exposure and his diagnosis, but I will tell you, I've seen what the disruption to the gut looks like up close. And when I hear that the same chemical he worked around for years is now being sprayed on the food you buy at the grocery store, and that a president just said to the companies responsible for it that they bear no legal liability for what happens next, definitely gets my attention. Here's the parallel that Kathy drew for me that I think is the key to understanding why this matters beyond the headline.
Let's talk about glyphosate.
Yes.
So this is really interesting because I also want to flash back to 1986 when President Ronald Reagan signed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And what that did was that granted complete no liability for manufacturers or the suppliers or the administrators of vaccinations on our children.
Wow.
So what happened, it's these corporations, these businesses, and they're like, oh, we're losing money because we're killing and destroying families and, making, debilitating their children. And so they're suing us and we can't make any money. So, government, dear not Dr. Reagan, President Reagan, please sign something to release us of liability. And he did. He did. And, I will say, I don't think he realized all the manipulation that was in there and what it was going to actually lead to.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he was sold a bunch of crap, which the same thing Trump was probably sold a bunch of crap about glyphosate.
In 1986, manufacturers went to Congress and said essentially, hey, we're being sued out of existence. We can't keep producing this product if we're on the hook for every adverse outcome. And Ronald Reagan, likely with the best of intentions, signed legislation granting those manufacturers full immunity and liability. Well, what happened? Well, when you remove accountability, you remove the incentive to make something safer. That's not ideology, that's just how markets work. And now in 2026, we're watching the same legal architecture get built around a product that ends up in your food. Is it a 4D chess move? Maybe. A policy designed to bring manufacturing back to the US before phasing it out? Possibly. But Kathy put it plainly. We don't know. And we don't know is exactly the problem when the people who do know aren't legally required to care about the outcome. See, here's what bothers me most about this, and it's not actually the policy itself. It's the conversation we're not allowed to have about it. I've had my channels throttled. My Twitter engagement is still broken even after Elon took over from the COVID era, and that's because we were one of those shows out there who got hammered for daring to ask questions that the experts didn't want us to ask. 18,000 followers. I get 2 likes a tweet. That's not organic. That's the fingerprint of a platform that decided our questions weren't acceptable. And see, that's the thing. I'm not asking you to agree with every conclusion me or my guests reach. What I'm asking you to agree with is that conversation should be allowed to happen. Because the moment you can't challenge a claim, the claim isn't science anymore. It's dogma. The market gets this, even when platforms don't. And that matters, because the market is where this fight is actually being won. My guest today is Kathy Mehan, medical freedom advocate, co-founder of Mehan MD, a nationwide adult telemedicine clinic based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Kathy built this practice alongside her late husband, Dr. Jim Mehan, who passed away a year and a half ago. And she's been carrying that mission forward. And she's launching Mindset Kids, a pediatric telemedicine clinic focused on root cause preventative care.
I think that is going to change the way if you want to call them closed-minded people are thinking, the ones that it's going to have to come from consumers. It's going to come from everyday people that are willing to listen to both sides of the story, to compare the data, look at the scientific, studies, look at the outcomes. And they are the ones fleeing their pediatricians' offices because they don't want to be forced into medical procedures. They are the ones that are buying certain products because they don't want to be told what to think, how to think. It's the consumer that is eventually going to be changing these outcomes because, they vote with their dollar. And as people are leaving, like I said, the mainstream medical communities and moving over towards like functional medicine, preventative medicine, the things that we do, it's like we need more doctors on this side, going to root cause. And that's, I always talk about that. Mainstream medical is really into disease management.
Yes.
All they want to do is you come to me with diabetes, I'm going to teach you how to manage it. You come to me with high blood pressure, I'm going to teach you how to manage it. Because you know what? I need a patient for life.
Can't solve it.
Yeah, if you come over to functional medicine, preventative medicine, we're talking about lifestyle. What do you eat? How do you sleep? Are you exercising? What's your gut microbiome look like? It's all of those things because what we want to do is we want to make you be healthy. And so when they talk about treatments in Western medical, it's not treatments, it's medical management is what it is. So, we really need people. And again, it's the consumers that are tired, fed up with mainstream medical, and they are voting with their dollars and they are moving over to things like functional medicine, root cause medicine. And that's when these other doctors are going to be like, well, how come my patients are being reduced? What's going on? Why am I losing business? Where did that patient go? And but other than that, they are so they're in a bubble. They are in a bubble. They are directed by managed care. So, for example, they can't even, a lot of these people in mainstream medical, they can't even offer certain like supplements or alternative medications because their malpractice insurance doesn't cover that. That's considered, outside of their scope of therapies. And so they don't even have the option. So, why would they even look at doing any of that? But, they're not going to get paid for telling somebody to go exercise.
Hmm.
That was, you know, they're just not. That's why, back in the day, my husband, Jim, he went from ophthalmology because he couldn't prevent end stage retinal damage to these patients. He needed to catch them 10, 15 years prior on, how do we take care of our bodies so we don't get sick and we don't need those eye surgeries and, just pivoted straight to functional medicine. And we just need more of those. We need a lot more of those.
See, and here's where this gets personal for me again. I used to weigh 385 pounds, morbidly obese, and I knew exactly what that mindset looks like from the inside. That easy button, right? The instant gratification, the idea that a pill is easier than a lifestyle. I lived it. And what Kathy is describing, this idea that we've built a healthcare system optimized for managing sick people rather than creating healthy ones. Like, I felt that in my own body before I understood it intellectually. The transformation I went through, it wasn't just the physical transformation, it was a mental shift in time preference. The idea that the 30 minutes in the gym today is a down payment on a future version of myself that doesn't need that pill. It doesn't need the management, doesn't need the system. Most people never make that shift. And Kathy's right? Not everyone can or will. But here's what I've seen. Once someone in your life makes that transformation, you can't unsee it. You see the difference in their energy, their mood, their family. And that's how this spreads. Not through mandates, not through guidelines, through people leading by example. Like, Kathy went through her own 90-day challenge recently, overhauled her nutrition, got back in the gym, cut dairy out entirely, and she told me, Brian, the cognitive lift alone was worth it.
What we can do is we can lead by example. And then because, the other thing, and we did talk about like my transformation, I did a 90-day challenge, which was, I really dialed in on my nutrition, started going back to the gym regularly. And cognitively, I mean, it just like it lifted this cloud, which I needed. I had gone through so much stress and, with the clinic and operating without Jim here anymore. And I think that if people could just get that feeling again, and maybe they're just going to have to see somebody get it and who's leading by example, and then
Yeah.
they're going to have to do it. But talking about the, I can do anything. Well, mine was a 90-day challenge, so I just kept saying to myself, I can do anything for 90 days, and that's what I every single day when I knew that I couldn't, I couldn't eat dairy. That meant no more bulletproof coffee. I mean, that was like my go-to every day. But I stopped doing dairy, so that meant no butter in my coffee. But I can do anything for 90 days, and that's really what it's a mindset. It really is, and I just hope that we can lead other people to do that kind of stuff. But it's
It's
and I
not
still
easy,
don't do
though.
dairy. It's way past my 90-day challenge, and I'm not going back.
The cloud lifted. She kept going long past 90 days because the results were undeniable. There's a deeper thread here that connects the glyphosate policy, the informed consent principle, and the health transformation conversation, and it's this. We've built institutions that are structurally incapable of telling you the truth about your health.
They're not learning it in school.
That's true. Yeah.
They are not learning critical thinking skills in school. They are taught to sit down, memorize, and listen and march forward. That's what they're taught in school.
Be a good little
So,
sheep.
yes, be little sheep, follow. It's like, my problem with like doctors. They're not taught to be critical thinkers. They're taught, yeah, I was a pharmaceutical rep. I went in and I gave them a little sheet that says, if your patient experiences these symptoms, prescribe this drug. That was my thing. There you go. Then I come back the next day or the next week and I'm like, remember, if your patient has these symptoms, prescribe this drug. And that was it. It was nothing like, you ever talk to them about, maybe getting some exercise or changing their eating habits or something like that. It was none of that. It was they want a list of things to memorize and then they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to research. They don't have to do anything. So anyway, sorry I was a direct.
Doctors aren't taught to be critical thinkers. Kathy, she was a pharmaceutical rep, and she knows the model from the inside out. You hand a physician a one-page sheet that says, patient presents with these symptoms, well, prescribe this drug. And that's not medicine. That's a lookup table. And we train the population the same exact way. Sit down, memorize, follow instructions, and don't ask why. The result is a society that outsources its health to people who have no legal liability for the outcome and no structural incentive to tell you there are alternatives. But the market is correcting. Slowly, messily, imperfectly, but it's correcting. Functional medicine is growing. Telemedicine is growing. Thanks, COVID. People are leaving their primary care physicians and finding providers who will actually look at their blood work and then ask questions. Rumble exists. X exists. Shows like this one exist, even if our metrics got kneecapped during a period when asking questions was treated like a public health hazard. The parallel economy that Kathy talks about, it isn't a fringe thing anymore.
I really feel like we are developing this parallel medical system. We
Yes.
have mainstream medical, pill for every ill, quick fix, disease management, and then we have this other side, which is functional medicine, holistic, lifestyle changes. Let's heal you. Let's keep you healthy. And you know what? We're always going to have both sides. It's going to be a parallel system. And I'll just give you the example. We'll have a patient come over and they're like, fed up with their current doctor and all this other stuff. And so we bring them in and we counsel them. We call it the mindset. It's microbiome, inflammation, nutrition, detox, sleep, exercise, and total hormone balance. And it's work, people. You have to work at that. And they're like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that. And they leave and they go back to their other physician and they take their high blood pressure medication and they take whatever, because human nature, not everybody can do it. And it's just, it's very sad, but I always think that there's always going to be that parallel system. You're going to have mainstream medical and then you're going to have the functional medicine people. And I just pray that more people wake up and maybe we see it a lot where like one family member will start doing the holistic healing and then here comes
Snowball.
their kids. And then
Yep.
here comes their parents, right?
It's where the smart consumers are going. And when enough patients vote with their feet and their dollars, the mainstream model will have to respond. Because that's how the market works. And that's how this ends well. Here's the framework I want you to walk away with today. Informed consent isn't just a medical term. It's a decision-making standard you can apply to every system in your life. Are you informed about the risks, benefits, and alternatives? And do you actually have the ability to say no without force? Apply that to your doctor, to your school, to your news feed.
Not, and that's going to bring me back to informed consent, because informed consent, that means that Western medical physician needs to tell the patient, okay, If you're not going to change your diet, you're not going to exercise, you're not going to, get better sleep, you're not going to check your hormones. If you're not going to do these things, you will be on this pill with these side effects for the rest of your life.
Right.
And if you get side effects from this pill, I'm probably going to add another pill for those side effects, and you're going to be on that pill for the rest of your life. That's part of informed consent. You need to tell the patient what they're going to be on for the rest of their life, because that goes back to disease management, but that's where they want you, people. And you can fire your doctor.
Say it again.
You can fire your doctor. Well, you know me. I'm against pediatricians. That's my big thing is now we do need some pediatricians, so don't send hate mail to me, but we need fewer pediatricians, and they need to be critically thinking pediatricians. They need to be that. So yeah, because we know the data is in on a lot of medical procedures and what it's causing in our children. And I did want for your viewers that are interested in things like that. I want to talk again. Informed consent means that the doctor informs you of risks, benefits, and alternatives. And the second word is consent. Consent means you say yes or no. That's it. You're informed, and then you consent. You say yes or no. So if you say no and your provider or physician or pediatrician badgers you, bullies you, tells you, or the administration says you can't go to school, or you can't do this, or you have to do this, that is not true consent. That is coercion. And you can fire that provider. So you just remember that.
And if the answer is no, well, if you're being managed rather than informed, if the alternative is being dismissed rather than explained, if no isn't actually an option, no, that's your signal to find a better system. You can fire your doctor. You can find a functional medicine provider. You can build better habits in 90 days. None of this requires establishment permission. Here's one thing I want you to take away from today's conversation. The medical system is not going to fix itself, but the market is already building the replacement. And you have access to it right now. Mehan MD, Mindset Kids, functional medicine providers in your area. Shows like this one that will keep having conversations the algorithm doesn't love. You don't have to wait for policy change, and you don't have to win an argument with your doctor. You just have to decide that your health is worth more than a path of You just have to decide that your health is worth more than the path of least resistance. And then go find people who agree.
Yeah. So again, what I love to talk about is informed consent, and that means risks, benefits, and alternatives. And then I also really love to provide educational resources for people when they are, just kind of like doing their own research. So I would love for people to go to Mindset Kids, which is, here's one of our little health guide right here, but it's mindset-kids.com. I have a whole page full of resources where parents and families can get information on some of the medical procedures, where they can learn a little bit about risks, benefits, and alternatives. And I list some books on there, which are great things. I'll just real quick, Vax Facts, which is written by a pediatrician. And then one of my favorites from Physicians for Informed Consent. It's called Vaccines and the Diseases They Target. This is really great if people like the real more study side of things, but it's great resources. And then An Inconvenient Study is the largest study of vaxxed versus unvaccinated children. It is a retrospective study. I'll give you the link to put in there, and it's an eye-opener, and you will be blown away when you see An Inconvenient Study.
So we started today with a question. What happens when the people responsible for your health have no legal skin in the game? The answer, unfortunately, is exactly what we've been seeing. But here's the thing. You're not powerless in the equation. You're a consumer. You're a patient. You're a person with the ability to seek out providers, products, and information sources that actually align with your interests. That's what Kathy Mehan is building at Mehan MD. So go ahead, check them out, mehanmd.com. And if you've got kids, keep an eye on mindset-kids.com. That's their pediatric telemedicine clinic that's launching soon. If today's episode made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it, because we're going to keep having conversations that don't always make people happy, especially those experts. And hey, this was just a taste of the conversation we had with Kathy. And if you want to catch the entire interview, including the video, head over and subscribe to The Brian Nichols Show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube Music, YouTube, wherever it is you consume your content. The full episode will drop tomorrow, Friday morning, so don't miss it. And with that being said, I'm Brian Nichols. This is The Brian Nichols Show, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.